What's up, Vibe Nation? It's about 9 o'clock in the morning right now. Snowboarding has become a full-blown trend. Everybody from your neighbor to the best influencers are giving it a try. In this video, I'm gonna go over my full gear breakdown of 2026. My hope is that this video could help a lot of you that want to continue in the sport and just quite frankly are a little confused of what gear to get and where to go to be able to stay on the mountain and continue riding. Now, if it's your very first time ever going, I'm just gonna say this real quick. Rent or borrow. Do not wear a really poofy jacket. Do not put on too much layers, and I can show you how I do it later in this video. And lastly, adjust those bindings. Every time you rent or you borrow a board, you want to make sure you adjust the bindings that will be comfortable to you. When you rent a board, they typically set it at 15 degrees in the front and -15 in the back. And in my opinion, that's more of a style to be riding in the park and doing tricks like that. Everybody's stance and sizing will be a little bit different, so feel free to mess around with those numbers. But I definitely like to keep the front foot anywhere between 12 and 15 degrees and the back foot anywhere between 0 and -9 degrees. So basically, I'm gonna be going from head to toe with my full gear, where I got it, and the cost of these items. Let's get it, let's go. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I don't always wear a helmet when I'm up on the mountain, but I am also gonna admit that I should be wearing a helmet every time I'm up on the mountain. Sometimes you get a little overconfident, you think things won't happen, but they do. I was actually able to find this helmet at a ski swap. If you wanna know a little bit more about ski and snowboard swaps, I have a video about that. But in general, I got a good deal on this helmet. Nonetheless, it's still pricey. But when you're a beginner and you're barely getting started, I highly recommend that you're wearing a helmet. My very first time, I hit the back of my head and got a concussion, and I was wearing a helmet. Who knows what the repercussions of that would have been if I wasn't wearing a helmet. So please make sure you wear a helmet. That way you are safe. You just really never know what can happen up there. And the last thing you want is to invest money into gear and get hurt because you're not wearing a helmet. So wear your helmet. Okay, the next item on my list is called a balaclava. Now and I may be saying that wrong, but what this is and why I really like this specific kind is because it allows you to have a layer, and I'm sorry if I'm rubbing the mic here, but it allows you to have a layer under your helmet and, you know, protect your face, your ears, and, you know, your head in general. And so what I like about this specific one that I have is that you can move this face part, or, you know, this mouth part, and this part still stays where it's at. It kind of has a little, they're like more separated. And it has a little breathability thing right here for your mouth. So I really like this specific one. Like I said, I could wear my helmet over it. Sometimes when you get a beanie, you have to get a bigger helmet or figure that out. And I really like this because it's still, you know, like it's your head. You can move this down, talk, whatever you have to do, put it up. It's really comfortable. Just a nice little layer of protection that I like to take. All right, up next we have goggles. Goggles are super important on the mountain. It's super important to get good goggles that give you good visibility. I personally got some cheap goggles to start with, and I'm not gonna lie, I think goggles are one of those things that it's good to get some good ones. The reason why is if your visibility is limited, it's gonna make it that much more hard to really even do anything. And as you can see, I even have these interchangeable magnetic ones, and if you're gonna go with magnetic ones, make sure that they're good magnetic ones because you don't want them falling off if you fall. Either way, like I said, goggles are one of those things that you do want to invest on some good ones. These are actually been used and abused. There's even some rust on it. I actually don't even use these anymore. These are just to show you guys, but I do have a second pair just like it because I really like these. They're just with the interchangeable lens. Depending on how the day is outside, it's just super easy to adjust these. And like I said, your visibility is key, important, obviously, when you're snowboarding. Get yourself some good goggles that you can see well. Your peripherals you can kind of see pretty well. You're obviously not going to be seeing as if you were not wearing the goggles, but I went cheap. Like I said, the first time they would fog up a lot and it would just be annoying. With that being said, the key when you're wearing your goggles, guys, is once you put them on, just kind of leave them alone. Don't take them off unless you absolutely have to. The constant taking off and on will actually end up fogging your goggles and once again, limit your visibility. So just a little tip right there, get some good goggles. If you want to get these interchangeable lenses, you can, but there's others without the interchangeable lenses that would work just fine. Just make sure that you maybe read some reviews, that you're getting good visibility, they don't fog up so easily, and if they're magnetic, that the magnets are good. All right, up next, I got my base layers, and I have a top base layer and I have a bottom base layer. Now these base layers are the ones that you will typically maybe find like joggers or runners wearing. They're, you know, stretchy, breathable material. And the reason why I like wearing these base layers that are a little more breathable is because they don't soak up so much moisture. When you're up in the mountain, you're actually pretty active. You're actually sweating. I personally sweat quite a bit. The last thing you want is that sweat to get soaked up by whatever clothes that you're wearing, and it actually ends up getting you cold because that sweat starts getting sort of like icy. And so that's why I really like these, because they allow me to stay warm, they're breathable, and they don't soak up so much moisture as per se maybe long johns would sometimes, or just wearing like a traditional long sleeve. Okay, up next, I'm actually wearing it. It's my hoodie. You wanna take a simple hoodie over your base layer and your t-shirt. I normally just go base layer, t-shirt, hoodie, jacket. That's kind of how my top system goes. I don't really just like taking a hoodie because I don't wear my jacket all the time. Maybe you're inside getting something to eat. Maybe you're in your car getting something to eat. You don't always wanna have your big old jacket, but if you take your jacket off and you're just wearing a t-shirt and your base layer, maybe it gets a little too cold. So it is important to maybe take a little hoodie just so you're a little more comfortable in those inside areas. All right, up next is my snowboard jacket. There's two main types of jackets in this industry. There's the hard shell ones, which are like these, and the soft shell ones. The hard shell ones are gonna be a lot more water resistant, a lot better when it's snowing a lot or it's raining. I highly suggest that you get yourself a hard shell one first, then go look at the soft shell ones. Also, make sure that your hard shell one has a hood. That's really kind of the only time I would be wearing a hood if I have a hard shell one, because it's maybe raining or it's snowing a lot. Now the soft shell ones are the ones that are a little bit more, well, soft on the outside. They're still water resistant. They're, you know, still good to wear out there, but definitely not as good if it's snowing a lot or it's raining a lot. So I actually personally like to take both. The soft shell ones are a lot typically more comfortable. They're a little lighter. You know, you're more mobile with them. But I do tend to have my hard shell one just in case it starts snowing or raining. I'm prepared. Now, if you're first getting started, I highly suggest that you get a hard shell one first with a hoodie so you're more protected if it rains or snows. I actually found this one in Plato's Closet in Spokane for $40. So if you take a look around, you'll find some good stuff. The key is don't get something that's too poofy. When you get something that's too poofy, you're gonna be uncomfortable, you're gonna get hot fast. Find something that's a little thinner, water resistant, and you're gonna be pretty mobile and stay warm. All right, up next, snowboard pants. Now I actually have some bibs. Now if you don't know what bibs are, it's the ones that actually come all the way up to here. Kind of looks like you have an apron on. Then I have regular snowboard pants, which are just like, you know, pants. Now in my personal opinion, when you're first getting started, bibs are the way to go. It just kind of helps with the snow consistently not getting into your back. You know, you're more well protected from the waist up. Once you get it down, once you're not falling a lot, then, you know, you got your pants. I personally still always wear my bibs. My pants are just kind of like extras at this point, but I'll just leave that up to you. But when you're first getting started, I highly suggest that you get yourself some bibs. Now they do run a little expensive for some good ones. So maybe if you're first getting started, you're not really sure if you're gonna continue in the sport, maybe borrow. That would be the best option, I would say, if you don't know if you're gonna continue. But if you are gonna continue in the sport, I think a good set of bibs is always a good investment. All right, up next we got gloves or mittens. I personally like going with mittens simply because I can put my hand and get it out easily. When I've worn the ones that they're individual fingers, they tend to come out, those liners tend to come out when my hand comes out because my hand's just kind of sweaty or moist, whatever, with the snow. You could get the ones that are basically sewn on the top, but I have found that those darn gloves are pretty expensive than what you could find some good mittens for. I've always just used mittens. Once I started using mittens, keep my hands warm. When I take them off, you know, my hands are free to use as needed. I would highly suggest that if your gloves don't have these straps, that you get some on Amazon. That's where I got mine. Just added them to my mitts that I have here, because you can find some really good mitts, but they don't tend to have these straps on them. But I found these straps on Amazon. The reason why I have these straps is you'd be surprised how much gloves will fall off the chairlift when you're taking them off to get on your phone or whatever it is you're getting from your pockets. You take these off and you just kind of set them down and you forget. So they fall, or you just set them down naturally and you just drop them. So having these straps definitely helps with that issue. Like I said, if your gloves don't have them, you can get them on Amazon. Let's go. Socks, up next. They're mismatched, who cares? The key is to have some worn socks, your Nikes, your Adidas, your little Under Armour socks. They're not gonna cut it. I got these at Sportsman's. Sometimes they're expensive, sometimes you can get some good deals on them, but I highly suggest you wear some good socks. No, I don't wear these over my regular socks. They're just super uncomfortable in my boots if I do it that way, but I do find that wearing some good, warm quality socks, like for outdoorsy type of stuff, always goes a long way when you're snowboarding. Up next, we've got boots. Now, these are actually the very first boots that I ever bought. No, they're not the best in the world, but what I ended up doing is putting one of these high-end insoles into them. If I can get it out here. Oh, yeah, it's kind of hard to. But anyways, what I ended up doing is putting one of these high-end insoles, and it brought this $150 boot, I think is what it costed, to like a $210 boot. I swear, this made all the difference. It's super comfortable. It's one of the biggest reasons why I actually haven't upgraded boots at all. It is a little difficult to get it in there, but once it's in, it's in. And I haven't used or got new boots since I started snowboarding and got these, which was like about 6 years ago. I'm not gonna lie, I am due for an upgrade, but with prices of things, I think I'm just gonna stick to these till I really absolutely feel that I need some new boots. It is important to be comfortable on the mountain when you're riding, guys, because if you're uncomfortable and your feet are hurting or things like that, it's just gonna make it that much more difficult. With that being said, when you're getting your boots, especially when you're renting boots or you're borrowing boots, a big misconception is to tighten the living crap out of them. Do not do that. Once again, you need to be comfortable. If you tighten them too much in the wrong spots, you're gonna lose circulation, your foot's gonna go numb, or it's just not gonna feel good, it's gonna hurt, and you're really just not gonna have a good time. So make sure you're tightening it in the right spots and not overdoing it. Mainly up here, so it's good when you're moving up and down, heel to toe. And down here, it can be kind of not loose, but not super tight. Once again, just feel it out. If at all you're ever having foot pain, it's not necessarily because the snowboarding. Sometimes it actually has to do with how tight you're putting your boots. All right, up next, I got my snowboard. Now this snowboard I bought once I actually knew I was for sure gonna get into the sport. I actually ended up getting these bindings with another snowboard. I have a total of 3. I first rented a snowboard. Like I've said, if you're a beginner, rent. Then I went and got some cheap one from my dad's friend. It was like $80 with some cheaper bindings. Then I went on Marketplace after I knew I wanted to do this more. And I found one with these flow bindings. These are just step-in bindings with the whole board. And once I really knew like, okay, I'm gonna be doing this, that's when I went and got this nice LibTech. Now, once again, I only highly suggest you go and spend $600 to $700 on a board, or even more. Some of them, you never know. If you really know you're gonna get into this, like really know how to board, you're gonna commit to the finances of it and all that stuff, because the last thing you really want is to spend $600, $700 on the board and just have to get rid of it. So I would highly suggest that, just rent. Like I said, adjust the bindings if you need it or borrow. And then once you really know, go ahead and spend some more money on a board. Some things that I would add to your board though, if you do get one, is these little step grip-ons. So when you're stepping off of the lift, you can have a little bit of grip on there. As far as binding goes, I really do like these step-on style bindings. These specific flow ones are a little more old school with this one piece right here. So I do want to get that changed up. But for the time being, I've used these for like the past 4 or 5 years and they've worked pretty well. Make sure that when you're first buying a board, if you are going to decide to get one, make sure that you're buying an all mountain board or buying a freestyle board, or really see what type of boarding you're doing, because the different types of boards really do make a difference on your style of riding and your experience on the mountain. All right, something else I like taking is a little waterproof bin like this to keep all my gear in. It's actually super helpful when I'm able to just open this right up like so. The back of my truck, reach in, get whatever I want. I used to actually take a duffel bag, but with your jackets, especially when you have a couple of them, and sometimes I take some extra gear just in case some people forget stuff, it's a little harder to reach in and grab stuff. And to be honest, the mountain's only open from 9 to 4 p.m. in most places. So I'm not trying to waste any time trying to dig through things and trying to find things that I need. Having a thing like this really helps. And if it's a waterproof one, you could also just leave it out in your truck and you're not gonna have to be worried about snow or things getting wet. Most people up in the mountain are very kind and honest people, so nobody's gonna really steal anything, hopefully. But I highly would suggest getting some bin like this. Even if you keep it inside your car, it's just a lot easier to access things. My next tip is how you wash your gear. Now, the last thing you wanna do is grab this $100, $200 jacket and put it in the wash like you wash everything else. That detergent takes away the natural waterproofing that your gear has. And this kind of goes for any sort of gear that has waterproofing on it. What you want to do is get yourself the proper detergent and proper waterproofing liquids to help your gear last the longest. I got mine from Nikwax. I actually got this 5 years ago. These are still over half full, guys. This is such a good investment for when you're buying gear that's $100, $200. The last thing you want to do is ruin it in the washer because you put Downy and Tide. So get yourself some of this stuff. It's the best investment you'll do for your gear to make it last as long as possible. Some quick things that I highly unrecommend you do, especially as a beginner, is don't take a backpack. The extra weight that you're using, the extra stuff that you have in there, it actually makes it a lot harder for you to really learn how to board. My first year, I actually took a full 12 pack of certain drinks in my backpack while trying to learn how to snowboard. It's the worst mistake you can make. Not only that, if you're not gonna end up using it, you have to probably end up getting a little locker or having to walk all the way to your car to put it away. Big mistake. Wait till you actually learn how to snowboard, learn how to balance, learn how to turn, and things like that. That way you can actually do better. Also, don't take a speaker, don't take your headphones, don't take your AirPods. I know music is a very good motivator. I know that it gets you pumped up, but you don't want to lose an AirPod, especially in a place full of white snow. You want to be focused when you're first starting, and sometimes having music could be a bit of a distraction. I also highly unrecommend going with people that already know how to snowboard only. It's important to have somebody with you maybe that's at that same level. That way you're not just getting left behind or having people wait on you or feeling like they're pressured to wait on you. It's good to sometimes have somebody that is at that same level with you, so you're kind of falling together and learning together, and you'll be surprised how fast you'll actually pick it up when you have somebody else that's learning with you. All right, well, that is my full gear and cost breakdown of 2026. I hope that it's helpful to some of you beginners that are wondering really where to go with the sport but want to continue. Hope to see you on the mountain. Until next time, let's get it, let's go. Do not wear a really poofy jacket